In the 12-step program, the 12th step, I'm just going to focus on the first part of it, is having had a spiritual awakening. I'm just going to stop there. There's more to the step than just that. But this having had a spiritual awakening is really an awakening to a transformation. In other words, a person in the 12-step program has become transformed. And of course, this may be a drastic transformation. This may be a little transformation, but nonetheless, there's a transformation. And sort of tying in with the second step, that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. It's the God of our understanding that allows the transformation. And it's also the support of the people around us that are part of our group that also helps us to be transformed. You know, part of the issue in our gospel reading with Thomas is that he wants to have the same experience as the disciples. You know, we can go along in our faith practice, you know, and people will share things about our faith with us. We'll take that into our hearts. We'll believe it. But at a certain point, we need to have an experience of God. And we have experiences of God all the time, but we need to be awakened to having these experiences with God. And this is what the disciples experience at the beginning of the Gospels. Jesus comes and is present among them and says, "Peace be with you." Now, this is a common Hebrew greeting, but this is also the greeting of the Messiah, that may God bless you with every good thing. You know, Jesus has come and he has shown them that he has been resurrected and that he has come ultimately to set them free. This freedom, you know, this peace that God gives that the world cannot give. And then he gives them the Spirit. You know, it's that Spirit that is transformational. And you know, in that second reading from the first letter of John, if we're going to follow the commandments of God, you know, what it's really about, you know, there has to be something different from the Old Testament to the New Testament. What it's actually about is allowing God to give us the graces, give us the love, give us the peace within our hearts. And then from that, we can love our neighbor as ourselves. And we recognize as children of God, as the reading points out, that the primary objective of life is love. You know, everything else is secondary, but love also adds so much meaning to our lives. You know, if I go to work and I'm just doing it for the paycheck, you know, where is the meaning and the purpose? But if I go to my job and I set out first to receive God's love and then to give that love to my coworkers and the people I interact with, it adds purpose and value and meaning to our lives. And so these disciples, they're going to receive a commission. They're going to be commissioned to continue the ministry of the Lord's forgiveness. You know, our world needs to know that they are forgiven, but we also need to have the grace and the ability to forgive others. So when we are forgiven, we receive that forgiveness from God into our hearts. And then in order for us to truly forgive someone else, we have to allow God to forgive through us. Now, in the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, this is a very practical way of living out our faith. You know, we are to share our resources with others, and nobody was needy among them because everyone was generous within the community. What an ideal community, but what a community that we ought to strive for. And it's not that there's a lack of resources in the world or a lack of food or water in the world. There's just a lack of generosity. So the gospel always calls us to be generous with others, to allow that generosity of God to be received within our hearts so that we can allow that same generosity, that same grace to act through us to other people. And if everyone does their little small part, then how much we can make the world a better place. And so as we gather around the table, Lord, once again, we actually have an experience of God as we receive the body and blood of Christ into our hearts so that we can be body and blood of Christ to the people that we encounter.